she was running the whole floor from inside out, but things were mad. Bantu come today from
I'm going now. She's here. I'll go.
Okay, we are live on our social media platforms with the holding page on your account. What was the why did they remove you from camera?
I don't know, I thought you guys were discussing it.
No, listening us.
I forgot how to do this. Ketepo, nenungura, undana ndorusheno. For 600. Nandituminwe unit. Maybe ondaka nanenda pera nditi pamota tuminwe unit. Maybe nengandi konditare ngui barwangu
Can you send the message to this?
Demo,
Let's see if you are.
musara dinamba taiko maperera tanga kurandike. Shiko chose kuyo batema. Oh, ibangiro letu nyoko.
Apa mwenda munzira muteksi ngarubari ayo mateksi ngwainyano yoni mayo yeno euro shitangani mateksi ngwanzi primo de
Yako toka
invitation ja
yako toka
invitation
na ayo to change genani ngapa dan
okay
gena taxi ro
90 seconds desire
ai voye itoporo ishi yako toka
sawa atoro mane masha
shimi ngumatora hono imari wataite ndauka hono
you take you
matora hono ene zako baitini vitaende
did it come through
no
on Vmix
okay yeah. I can do it
you are here
tokara kuti nipepeo maperera tanga
what is seconds
amesine ndakadengera
the what 20 seconds I'm trying to read your lips desire oh the check what is she saying on the group can anyone read what yeah
there's nothing
group there's nothing unless there's another one
Good afternoon, Namibia and the world, and welcome to our Thursday edition here at the Government Information Center. I am your host for this afternoon, and my name is Desire Kahiha. Today we're looking at the relevance of performance, environmental and compliance audits, and in our studios we are graced by the presence of officials from the Office of the Auditor General. We do have the Deputy Auditor General, and that is Mr. Gomez Menetti, and he is obviously, as I said, from the Office of the Auditor General. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
We also have the presence of Ms. Waltert Gondwe, and she is a senior auditor with the Performance, Environmental and Compliance Audit Directorate. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
And at the far end there we have Mr. Lorenzo Bock. He is a chief auditor with the same Directorate of Performance, Environmental and Compliance Audit. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We started off very simple, and we want to know from the Deputy Auditor General, can you provide us with a background, a basic background on value for money audits and compliance audits, as well as the combined financial audit manuals and the compliance audit manuals?
Yeah, thank you very much, Desire. I think our office has been doing audits. Mostly in the beginning, it was mostly on financial audits only, where we look at figures, where we look at financials and certify financial statements and report on audit opinions. But then the office then went further and started to also do what we do, a performance audit and also compliance audit. We also do environmental audits as well as what we call KPI audits. So performance audit is really, as you said, is value for money, where we really look at operations of an institution and we make sure that is this institution truly achieving its objectives?
Yeah.
Is this institution really effective in what they are doing? Is it efficient? And also, is it economically doing its resources? Because we realize that it's not only that you should be accountable to the figures and to the books, but also as you have been given the money by Parliament. Is this money really being used effectively and efficiently?
Yeah.
Because what the public really wants to know is, yes, we have given you, we have paid our taxes, and really are our taxes been well spent effectively and efficiently? Now, on the compliance part also, we look at the compliance audit, which also really helps us, because what we do is we go and we look at certain subject matter that we really go and interrogate, and we really go and look at what exactly does the laws require, how this money must be accounted for, and also how the thing should be operated and functional. So that's why we really look at the compliance and ensure that, because there are laws, there are policies, and these laws must be complied with at all times.
Yeah.
We can't just be having laws and they're just there to decorate our shelves, but they are there to be implemented and to be complied with. So what we do then with the audit is we then go and we take those policies, we then look at those laws, and we make sure that they are being complied with. And of course, as I said, that we then issue a report.
Yeah.
Now, these reports, they go to Parliament. And of course, Parliament will then go and refer them to the Public Accounts Committee, where I think you have seen in the past that the Public Accounts Committee has been calling accounting officers to come and account publicly and explain to the public as to how this money has been spent. And that is really where the issue really comes, is about accountability.
Yeah.
And that is why it is so important for Parliament and PAC to really, because the money was approved by Parliament, mind you. And Parliament now need to go and, we have given you so much money. How do you use this money? Do you account for the money correctly or not? So that's why really, and then the report really, when the issue about the KFM and the KEM is really the combination of how we use all these manuals to be able then to produce all this information that we need in the reports, and then the reports that to go to Parliament in that format.
Okay.
Yes.
I like the fact that, the initial beginning was a focus on the financial end, but as time went, you identify that it needs to be expanded beyond that to really ensure that you get, as we said, the value for the money that is put out. And at the end of the day, it is actually our money that we need to, have a reflection on. Mr. Bok, now we need to get down to the terminologies and have a better understanding thereof, and this is where we would like to find out from you. Can you please explain to us the difference then between performance and environmental audits?
Yes. At our office, we are people-centered. Our people are very important. And as we stated earlier, that the objectives of service delivery is important. Now, when our NDB5 was developed, it expired, now we adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, where we have economic, social, and environment.
Yes.
So what is critical here is that now, to distinguish between the difference between the two is that the subject matter. And at our side, at performance auditing, we have come to a conclusion that we're going to use the performance audit methodology to conduct environmental audits. So what is important here to realize is the fact that the three E's, the economic, economic efficiency and effectiveness, we will look at an environmental subject matter. So environmental audit in our terms is that subject matters that have an impact on the environment. I can give you examples, air quality monitoring in the country, for example. That, for example, is a subject matter to us that we did through a performance audit methodology. Now, environment has to do with the impacts on the environment that affects our people, but then when we do performance auditing, we look at it through the 3 E's, economy, are we spending the money correctly, are we procuring resources at the right time, at the right quality, at the right price, efficiency, are we doing with the little we have, effectiveness, are we achieving our objective, and even if we comply to laws, are we achieving the intended outcome of service delivery. Important for us for there is also the impact of the environment, to protect the environment and to have sustainability for our future generations within that.
Okay, okay. Well put, very simple, concise but very informative. At this point, I'd like to remind you that we have conversations on this platform, and it's very much our platform. Mine, the panelist, and yours as our viewer. And we would like to welcome you to our conversation. You can do so by putting on your comments or your questions on our social media platforms through which we are live streaming. On Facebook, you can find us at Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. That's Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. That's on Facebook. We are also on YouTube, and our handle there is MICT Namibia. MICT Namibia. We continue while we wait for you to join us here, and we would like to find out then from Ms. Gondwe, what is compliance audit and why is it important?
Well, a compliance audit is where we take a subject matter and assess whether it's in compliance with the laws and the regulations and the policies and the agreed upon terms. Okay. Now, from those laws and regulations, we identify or we derive our criteria, like for example the sections within the act, let's say Maintenance Act, we take the sections within the act, and that's what we refer to as our criteria. So now we'll assess whether the subject matter is complying to the criteria that's established for the audit. Our compliance audits are important because, first of all, it promotes accountability, because we're reporting material non-compliant deviations from law, and that enables us to keep those accountable, first of all, responsible. It ensures that corrective actions are put in place, and as well as good governance. Because once again, we identify weaknesses and deviations from laws and regulations, and we also assess propriety when laws or policies or regulations are inadequate and insufficient to recommend maybe we need an improvement in law, we need change in law. Yes, to better assess compliance and keep, of course, people accountable. And lastly, I would say transparency. Why? Because we report these material non-compliant findings in our reports, and of course that is accessible to citizens to know how our audited public entities comply with the relevant laws and legislation.
Okay. Mr. Bok, we come then to you because we would like to then have a determination on the subject matter for performance or environmental matter.
So the subject matter in performance environmental audit is really, at the end of the day, the focus. What we are going to focus. So we have a procedure of how we're determining the focus. Internally, we will do what we call area watching, sector monitoring. We will identify problems in the public. So there is topical issues. You would find, let's say, for example, a topical issue, there is sewerage spillage, for example. Or you can read something on inefficient tax collection. That is a subject matter. So what we do at the end of the day, how we determine this is then, we will come up with an audit motivation. We will motivate to our management, and then our management will then approve the topic. Now, at the end of the day, this subject matter, we will develop audit objectives for this subject matter. Now, let's say you have tax collection. So we will say to assess whether a certain ministry is efficiently, economically, and effectively collecting tax. And really that will form our basis of our focus, and it will become the subject matter of the audit. So that's basically the subject matter from an environmental perspective. For example, you can have water pollutions. Is our water polluted? That is a subject matter in our sense, and then we will develop an audit objective for that, and it will form the focus then of our audit.
Okay. Ms. Conway, we then come to you then on compliance audits. We would like to find out from you, how are they conducted? Give us an idea of the process of audit, compliance auditing.
Thank you for that question. First of all, compliance has 5 audit stages. First of which is the initial consideration, where we identify risks at high level so that we can identify a subject matter. So we do an initial risk assessment to identify the subject matter or the audit topic that we would be auditing. Of course, we also consider ethical requirements as well at the initial stage. Then the second stage is the audit planning. The audit planning, we are trying to, our purpose is to develop an audit strategy. Okay, so the activities that go into the audit strategy is understanding the internal controls of the auditee, determining materiality, doing a risk assessment at entity level, developing audit procedures that we're going to use for the audit. Yes, and we also look at the relationship between the subject matter or the audit topic that we're going to audit with the criteria, and we also determine the scope of the audit. And that in itself develops our audit strategy, which of course has to be approved by management before we proceed to executing the audit, which is the 4th stage, where we perform the audit procedures to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Here, basically, we perform the audit procedures, we obtain audit evidence related to those audit procedures, we identify material non-compliance, and then we proceed to the next stage, which is evaluating that audit evidence. We are evaluating whether the audit evidence that we obtained is sufficient, it's appropriate, and we can form conclusions based on that audit evidence that we have obtained. And then the final stage is the reporting stage. Here we, through a management letter that we issue, we communicate the material non-compliant findings to the client. And of course, once we've issued this management letter, it gives the client the opportunity to respond on it. And thereafter, once our office and management feel that the findings have been responded to satisfactorily, then whatever we feel is still unresolved will then be cascaded to our report.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Minete?
Yeah, I think the issue about evidence is very, very pertinent. Because when we issue these reports, we need to make sure that those reports are accurate and are factual. Because the moment when the report is in the public domain, you can't undo that report. So that is why it is very pertinent that we receive those evidence and we make sure that those evidence are there, are factually correct, and are able to stand any test. Because you might be taken to court, and you need to be able to really have those enough evidence to prove that you were correct. That's why it is very important for us to make sure that we receive evidence during the audit. So that these reports, because these reports, as I said at the beginning, these reports, they go to Parliament. And the moment when they are in Parliament, then they are public documents where everybody have access to those reports. That is why it is pertinent that those reports are correct, are factual, and that's why also after the audit, as Gondwe just said, is that those draft reports goes to the auditee for them to go through that report and to give their comments, because those comments will also become part of the report as well. For it to be able then to be tabled in Parliament, or those comments as well. So that is why it is important that when the auditee is given this draft report, should be able to comment. Now, sometimes it comes that they don't comment on these reports. And then what we do is immediately, after we've given them a deadline as to when they should give their comments, we then take these reports then to Parliament without those comments. But once we have received those comments, we then assess those comments and say, okay, these comments are good enough to be able to be part of the report. If we're satisfied, we then take out those findings. If we're not satisfied, then those findings will then find itself then on the way to Parliament, and then will then be discussed then at Parliament through the Public Accounts Committee.
Okay. Well put. I hope, as I say every time, we learn something new every single day on this platform, and it is sometimes good to find out the doings, the happenings, the operational manners that some of these officers carry out their functions, so that we have a better understanding. Remember, we say that you can give us any questions that you have through our social media platforms, and on Facebook you can find us at Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia, and on YouTube we are also live streaming there, and our handle there is MICT Namibia, MICT Namibia. Our next question then goes to Mr. Bok, where we would like to find out from you, is there a difference in methodology between performance and environmental audits? I mean, here we would like to even have a highlight being given with regards to the difference of the subject matter.
As I've initially explained, our office, we use the same methodology for both performance and environmental audits. The only difference being that is the subject matter. So the subject matter will be, if it's an environmental focus, we will still use the performance audit where we assess it through the 3 E's that we call economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. So through that, there will be objectives related to environmental protection depending on the entity that we are auditing. So we will run it through the same methodology. But of course, environmental audit can be done through financial or compliance audit or performance audit. Even compliance auditors, they have the liberty to do a compliance subject matter. But in our case, the methodology is exactly the same. Just to take you through our methodology, we have a planning phase where we, to conduct a risk assessment, we do a pre-study. Through the pre-study, we will have risk assessment through our problem tree. And through that, we will come up with a focus of a subject matter. It could be environment or non-environmental. Then after our pre-study is approved, we are going over to execution. This is now where we start with a main audit report. Basically, in the main execution phase, we collect data, we collect evidence. It could be primary data, it could be secondary data. Primary data could be what we do, our own inspections, our own observations, our own reperformance, our own calculations, our own analytical reviews. And then this evidence, we do data analysis, and through that now, if we are satisfied that the entity is not efficient, economical, or effective, we will then, these things will be transferred into an audit report. And this is through the audit report, that is where it will go back to the audit entity, where they will have to provide evidence. If they don't provide evidence, they have to comment, as the DAG explained. And then after that, the report now will be tabled in Parliament. Now in performance auditing, we have go a step further, through the methodology. We have what we call a follow-up audit. Because after a certain period of time, we have to go back and see whether recommendations have been implemented and to what extent. And this will be reported back again to Parliament. But in terms of methodology, in our case, in the Office of the Auditor General, the methodology for performance and environmental audit is the same. It's just that the subject matter could be environmental or non-environmental.
Okay. Very good. Clearly defined there. Thank you very much, Mr. Bok, for that one. At this point, we would like to invite Dr. Pea Mushelenga, who is the Minister for the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, to please give us the cabinet briefings for the week. Good afternoon, Doctor. How are you?
Good afternoon, viewers and listeners. I'm going to give briefings on the cabinet decisions taken at the 19th decision-making meeting of the cabinet that was held on the 1st of November.
Okay.
First decision. procurement and introduction of the human papillomavirus vaccine in Namibia, expanded program on immunization of the Ministry of Health and Social Services for the prevention of cervical cancer. Cabinet approved the procurement and introduction of the human papillomavirus vaccine in the National Expanded Program of Immunization to initially vaccine 10% of girls aged between 9 to 14 years old and roll out the vaccine over 3 years to vaccinate 70% of the targeted population. And 10% translates to 39,511 girls. Cabinet supported the procurement of the Gardasil 4 vaccine through the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF. Cabinet authorized the Ministry of Health and Social Services in collaboration with the relevant offices, ministries, and agencies and stakeholders to embark upon a communication campaign strategy to educate the public on the importance of HPV vaccines for cervical cancer prevention and control. Second decision, approval of the revised National Sanitation and Hygiene Strategy 2022 to 2025. Cabinet approved the revised National Sanitation and Hygiene Strategy 2022 to 2027 and its implementation plan to give strategic direction for a coordinated approach to the implementation of sanitation and hygiene activities on the basis of sanitation policy of 2008. Cabinet supported the proposal for the construction of sanitation facilities through the use of unemployed youth, especially those with technical expertise across the country. Third decision, signing of the agreement on the operationalization of the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC Regional Development Fund, FDF. Cabinet granted approval for Namibia to sign the agreement to operationalize the Southern Africa Development Community Regional Development Fund, RDF, with the objective to mobilize resources from member states, development partners, and private sector to support regional development and to deepen regional integration. Fourth decision, 2021 to 2022 Annual Report of the Communication Regulatory Authority of Namibia, CRAN. Cabinet took note of the Communication Regulatory Authority of Namibia Annual Report and authorized the Minister of Information and Communication Technology to table the report in the National Assembly to promote transparency and good corporate governance. I should just report that I just tabled it before I came here. Fifth decision, 2021 to 2022 Annual Report for the Road Fund Administration. Cabinet took note of the annual report of the Road Fund Administration and authorized the Minister of Finance and Acting Minister of Public Enterprises to table the said report in the National Assembly in line with Section 22, subsection 1 of the Public Enterprise Governance Act number 1 of 2019 and Sections 25, subsection 1 of the Road Fund Administration Act number 18 of 1999. Here ends Cabinet briefings, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And I see we're keeping you very busy. We're having you run around all over the place. But thank you for always making time to make sure that the nation is informed.
It's my pleasure.
And well educated.
It's my pleasure.
And at this point, we continue with our sessions for the afternoon. Thank you very much there for Dr. Pea Mushelenga for giving us the cabinet briefing. That was the 19th, that was delivered on the 1st of, on the 1st of November 2022. At this point, we would also like to inform you that our lines are open. You can give us a call in the studio. The area code is 061 for the Central Region. The number is 400397. 400397. That's our number in the studio. You can give us a call, ask your question, and also if you have any comment or an opinion that you'd like to bring forth, you're welcome to do so. On our social media platforms, Facebook, you can find us at Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia, Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. We are on YouTube as well. Our handle there is MICT Namibia, MICT Namibia. Here we continue. Ms. Gonwe, what impact does compliance audit have towards the improvement of livelihoods for the citizens of Namibia?
The best way to answer this question is by giving you an example from our past audit reports. We did a compliance audit on the Maintenance Act, and one of our recommendations on our key findings were that more maintenance officers be appointed and maintenance investigators as well. And we have seen that as time passed that the Ministry of Justice did implement those recommendations by appointing more maintenance officers and investigating officers, because at the time of our audit we only had one maintenance officer for the entire country.
Wow.
Yes, that was in 2016.
Sure.
And actually no maintenance investigator. And in 2021, I cited in a newspaper article that the Minister of Justice, Honorable Downsop, she stated that they had, at that time when the article was written, they had at least 9 investigating officers and 3 maintenance officers. So from the time period of 2016 to 2021, there has been, those recommendations were effected. Yes, so you can see that they did implement our recommendations. We also recommended that they do more public awareness sessions so that people become more aware of their maintenance rights when it comes to child maintenance, spousal maintenance, parental maintenance. And there's actually on the MICT platform, they were actually, officials from the Ministry of Justice, they were actually interviewed where they shared about maintenance matters. And that in itself is evident that the auditing Ministry of Justice did implement our recommendations. And that, in effect, has a positive effect on the citizens, because now proper investigations can take place when it comes to maintenance. And then the children or the parents or the spouse can then receive the maintenance grant that is then due to them. So, yes.
I'm not going to be the devil's advocate in this one and throw a wrench in the wheel. You just referred to, for example, in 2016, one investigator.
Maintenance officer.
Yes, maintenance officer for the whole country. 2021, this number was significantly increased. I mean, if we're going from 1 to about 3, that to me is a significant increase. We're not at 100% perfect, but it's an increase. Now I go back to this particular person in 2016 who's running around this whole country. And I now have this question in my head where we're looking at policies that are tabled at cabinet, that literally every single OMA, every single whatever is told, this is what you need to start implementing. And in recent days, we've come across certain policies with regards to the internal functioning and functions of OMAs that, you know, when a letter blatantly said, we have failed, does the responsibility then lie on the Office of the Auditor General to inspect on whether some of these policies that are not necessarily have financial attachments to it, but more to the operations of OMAs internally? Because I look at some of these, and the last one I'm specifically referring to speaks to wellness of employees that was not implemented. And I'm thinking of this person, one person, running basically this, you know, function for a whole country. That speaks to being overworked, that speaks to exhaustion, that speaks to work not being properly carried out because he needs to take care of 14 regions. So his attention cannot exactly be 100% when he's carrying out these investigations. Whose responsibility is it to make sure that the OMAs within themselves, not necessarily for services that go out to the public, but for the functions internally, carry out what they're supposed to do? Mr. Menete?
Yes, I think in this case, the accounting officer or the executive directors are the ones who are supposed to ensure that all these activities have been implemented.
Okay.
Because cabinet is there to give policies. It then goes down then to accounting officers then to go and ensure that those policies are being implemented. That is why it is important that even when we do our audits, we engage the accounting officers. We make sure that the accounting officers have to give consent or agree with what did we find during the audit.
Yeah.
So eventually, there is only one person that's accountable in any OMA, and it's the accounting officer. So he is the one that should be able to explain, should be able to ensure implementation. And even when the Public Accounts Committee is questioning accounting officers, they call the accounting officers to come and explain as to why you did not do what you're supposed to have done. Us is to do the audit, and then to report to Parliament.
Okay.
Parliament will refer the report to Public Accounts Committee. They will sit as accounting as a committee, interrogate these reports, and then call these accounting officers to come and account to the public. As I said at the beginning, the money was approved by Parliament.
Exactly.
That's why we report back to Parliament. So Parliament then to go and see, was the money spent the way how we have approved it, or differently? So at the end, it is for one person to account. And that is going to be the accounting officer.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We're just trying to make sure that we understand and know whose door we can knock on when some of these things are not happening, when we have queries and complaints, and sometimes very unfortunate incidences that do take place. So hence some of these questions. Mr. Bok, from here we would like to then ask, what is the main difference between value for money audits with regards to performance and environmental, as well as compliance audits?
Well, as we stated, value for money goes beyond compliance. Compliance is a part of value for money audits, but value for money audits take it a step further. Even if, let's say, even if you are complying to a certain law or regulation, does it mean that it will lead to the intended outcome of service delivery? Does it mean that you are achieving your objective? Does it mean that the service is being delivered economically, efficiently, or effectively? So the difference between the two is that performance of value for money will take a step further from the compliance on a subject matter by investigating thoroughly, even if you are complying. Are you attaining your intended objective in terms of service delivery to the taxpayer? And even if through that, is it economically, is it efficiently, or is it effectively done? So value for money takes it a step further, because that dollar that we are receiving from the budget to achieve a service delivery must be to the benefit of the Namibian citizen in terms of objectives of service delivery. But compliance will end the compliance of the subject matter or not.
Okay. Okay. We're nearing the end of our program for this afternoon, but I would actually be failing if I let the panelists go without specifically asking this very, I'll say blanket question, because everything that happens at every single, string end has an input or an effect on the nation as a whole. And I would like to find out then from Mr. Mineti, how has performance or environmental audits contributed towards the national development so far?
Wow. Quite a lot, really. I must say that, in fact, even the IDs, in the past we did an audit, performance audit on IDs. And today you can see how efficient the Ministry of Home Affairs is in terms of issuing of IDs.
Yeah.
It really came out from those reports that we have tabled in Parliament. And those reports were really eventually been implemented. And we have done so many performance audits on various topics that we have done, that were also tabled in Parliament. I spoke about the issue of Public Accounts Committee that needs to make sure that the reports that goes to Parliament eventually are implemented. And if these reports really are implemented, I can assure you, Desire, that we will see a very efficient and a very effective public service. Because these reports that I said at the beginning is that we look at the whole operations of the OMA, of the entity that we are auditing, and we look at each and every aspect and we report to Parliament. So if Parliament ensure implementation, I can assure you that we'll find a very efficient and effective public service in this country.
Okay. So it's safe to say that, you know, those that are tasked with what we term as your BPR or your business process re-engineering, they should really consider to have these audits to be part of their guiding documents.
Exactly.
I think that would be the best words to use right now. Guiding documents to understand where and how, you know, the need is, and not just operate, you know, in a vacuum with themselves. No, well put. Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to ask then for the last remarks from our panelist, Mr. Bok. Anything you'd like to close up with?
Well, from my side, just to add on how value for money audits contributes is even to the national development of sustainable development goals. You see these days in the market, they talk about ESG, environmental, social, and governance.
Very much.
And that is where we are going into the future. So the Office of the Auditor General also plays a vital role in achieving that at national level. And that's why we incorporated environmental aspects into that. So I'm saying that another advantage for us is we are contributing to national development goals, also trying to audit through achieving the sustainable development goals. And I think our NDP 5 was sort of aligned to that. So through our recommendations, sometimes it goes recommendation implemented, but slowly, but we are getting there.
Ms. Gonde?
Well, our compliance audits definitely contribute to improvement of law, because what we have seen recently is that most of our law is quite outdated. So compliance audits tend to bring that out, the adequacy and the sufficiency and the relevance of the law to today's status quo. So yes, compliance audits are meaningful or contribute meaningfully in that regard.
Mr. Meneti, we're finished with you.
Yes, indeed. I must say that we are doing all this kind of audits. I said we did financial audit in the beginning. We moved to environmental. We moved to performance audit, compliance audit. We're also doing IS audit, which is now computer audit, as we used to call it in the past. We are also doing what we call KPI audits. The KPI audits is now where we look at targets that were set by the respective ministries. Because we want to see that are those targets being met. Because that's what may really help if you are going to be able to spend the money well, but still you do not be able to achieve your targets. So for us, it's very important that we also go and look as to, did you achieve your targets? Well, the legal mandate you were given. Because for us, it's very important. That's why we believe that if our reports from our Office can be implemented, I'm very sure that this country can be very productive in all aspects and can also be very efficient public service that we can have in this country.
Very true. Very true. So there we have it. Our officers are tasked with service provision for our nation. Yet at the end of the day, we need to have a watchdog that makes sure that we are actually doing what we set out to do, and we're doing it in the right way. Regardless of where we find ourselves economically as a nation, somebody has to hold the next person accountable. And I believe the Office of the Auditor General is our principal's office. At this point, I'd like to thank our panelists. I'd like to thank our panelists for availing their time. I believe we have a question, though, before I wrap up. We have a question, yes. Okay, I think we lost that caller. So unfortunately, we lost that caller. We would have actually appreciated that question. But as I said, we're wrapping up. We thank you very much for being part of our show this afternoon. We thank the panelists for availing their time to come and explain some of these details to us and educate us. From myself, Desire Kahiha, along with my production crew, it's bye-bye. Till next time.